Hi, my name is Benny Lee. I'm the author of the book called Watch the Mouth. Also a health and life coach. I used to have diabetes many years ago. After I found out what the root cause for my diabetes, I reversed my diabetes within 6 months. Now I live a life free from diabetes. Please watch this video before you avoid sugar or blame sugar for causing cancer, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, etc. Let's ask this very important question. Why those who avoid sugar still get cancer, diabetes, other diseases, and become obese? Simple answer is we have been so misguided about sugars. Most consumers think all sugars are bad and that there is no such thing as good sugar. While they avoid sugars without them realizing they consume many bad sugars on a daily basis. This video will help you to clear the many misconceptions about sugars so we can be truly healthy and not to be misled by many fancy names for bad sugars. Before we start, let's clarify and state 3 very important facts. Number 1, there are good sugars and bad sugars, just like there are good cholesterol and bad cholesterol, good fats and bad fats, and there are natural carbohydrate and refined carbohydrate. Number 2, good sugars don't cause diabetes, heart disease, obesity, etc. Good sugars are nutrients that our body and brain need. Number 3, glucose in our blood is just a symptom of diabetes. Bad sugars and refined carbohydrate are the main cause for diabetes, obesity, and other diseases. Many consumers think they are savvy by looking at the food label's sugar content, regardless whether the sugar is natural or processed or refined, to determine whether they want to buy or consume the food. Not only this is very misguided, but also there are far too many label frauds regarding sugar in the food, that many food manufacturers either lie about their low sugar content or conceal added sugar as one of the ingredients, or trick consumers with fancy but misleading names for the bad sugars they have added. Generally, we can divide sugars into the following 3 main categories. 1. Good natural sugars, i.e. fructose in fruits, raw honey. 2. Bad processed refined sugars, i.e. raw sugar, white or brown sugar, dextrose, corn syrup, maltose, etc. 3. Sugar substitutes, i.e. coconut sugar, monk fruit and stevia leaf extracts, and artificial sweeteners, i.e. Equal, Splenda, sucralose, etc. that contain aspartame, that cause cancer and other diseases. By the way, a lot of consumers don't know that sugar substitutes and artificial sweeteners are refined and processed sugars, hence they are also bad sugars. Good natural sugars are natural carbohydrate our body can metabolize properly into nutrient and energy, also food for our brain, and they help regulate our blood sugar. Bad processed sugars are refined carbohydrate that most of their fibers remove. Our body cannot metabolize them properly, hence they become fat and glucose in our blood that clog up our arteries, causing high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, etc. Now let's discuss the most common bad sugars or bad carbohydrates, aka the refined processed sugars we consume knowingly and unknowingly every day, and highlight the fancy names food manufacturers use to disguise their bad and unhealthy reputation in order to confuse and to mislead consumers. Let's start with the common refined white sugar or table sugar. Their usual raw ingredient is either beet or cane. Beet sugar is made from sugar beets. They are closely related to beetroot. They grow below ground. Beet plants are grown in temperate climate zones, which are a root vegetable specifically cultivated for their high sucrose content. The process involves harvesting the beets, slicing them into thin strips called corsets, and then extracting the sugar-rich juice. The juice is then boiled, purified, concentrated, and crystallized to produce the final beet sugar product. Cane sugar is obtained from the juice of the sugarcane plant. They grow above ground. Cane plants are grown in tropical and subtropical regions. The process consists of the extraction of juice, its boiling, evaporation, and subsequent crystallization into those crystals known as white granulated sugar. Believe you now have a better idea how the common sugars are made on an industrial scale, that during the boiling and refining process, purification and crystallization process, not only fibers and nutrients are stripped, but also chemicals and additives are added. So common sugars are the bad sugars and the bad refined carbohydrate. Now let's discuss brown sugars. They are made with similar ingredient and processed like white sugar, except they are either a partial process to retain their molasses, or after white sugars are made, white sugars are blended with molasses. So what is molasses? It is a byproduct of the sugar making process where manufacturers crush sugar cane or sugar beets to extract the juice. They then boil down the juice to form sugar crystals. Molasses is the thick brown syrup left over after they remove the crystals from the juice. Light brown or dark brown, the colors depends on the amount of molasses retained or added. In any event, brown sugars are also the bad sugars and the bad carbohydrate. Here is an example of a fancy name for brown sugar. It is used to be called raw sugar. After consumers complained, they renamed it to sugar in the raw. But in my opinion, it is still misleading and unethical, as it implies the sugar is raw. But the sugar is just the common refined and processed brown sugar. Sugar in the raw is also known as turbinado sugar, the fancy name for refined and processed light brown cane sugar, but with larger crystals. No matter what name it is called, it is still a bad sugar, therefore the bad refined carbohydrate. As consumers become more aware that cane sugar is the bad refined white or brown sugar, the food manufacturers trick consumers further with new fancy name, i.e. evaporated cane juice or granulated cane juice, to disguise and to mislead consumers thinking they are using juice which is less processed or healthier than the refined processed sugars. To make cane sugar, you need to evaporate the cane juice and then it becomes granulated sugar. So it is refined white sugar in disguise. It's a marketing gimmick to make the processed refined sugar sounds more natural but highly unethical. Next is coconut sugar. Consumers have been tricked to believe that coconut sugar is the healthier alternative to white or brown sugar. It is not a misnomer, but rather an outright misrepresentation to name brown sugar as coconut sugar, to mislead or trick consumers into thinking the sugar is actually comes from the white flesh of the coconut. Coconut sugar is actually not made from coconut, but from the sap of a palm tree trunk or stem. Palm tree is not the same plant as coconut tree. See picture for comparison. Coconut is a spherical shaped nut in a hard shell with white flesh inside the nut. The white coconut milk is made from juicing the white flesh. Palm trees produces thousands of tiny seeds at its top. The size of the seed is similar to the size of a date. The seeds are processed to produce palm oil. Palm tree is short with thick scaly trunk, while coconut tree is tall, skinny, with a few bowling ball sized coconuts at its top. After consumers complain the misrepresentation, the manufacturers then add palm sugar after the word coconut so they can say they don't lie 100%. But then coconut sugar's packages try to defend their misnomer by claiming that their sugars are made from tapping the sap from palm budding flowers. Can you imagine that you climb to the top of the palm tree, tie the budding flowers, cut them, then tie and hang a container to catch their dripping sap? Then a few days later, climb back up to untie and to retrieve the container. And you have to do this on thousands of palm trees. This is not only impractical, but also dangerous to get to the top. The so-called coconut sugar is produced on an industrial scale and mostly derived from the sap of palm tree stem or trunk, similar to how maple syrup is tapped from maple tree trunk. The making process of coconut palm sugar is similar to cane sugar making. You boil the sap from palm tree, evaporate and crystallize it to make granulated brown palm sugar. Likewise, it is the same process bad sugar stripped of fiber and nutrients. Hence, it is also the bad refined carbohydrate. One more important fact is that this so-called coconut sugar doesn't even taste like coconut at all, and it is not white but brown in color and tastes more like caramel. In Indonesia, the palm sugar is widely consumed. It is not called coconut sugar, rather it is called red sugar or gula aren or merah in Indonesian. Here is another example of bad sugar called caramel. It is added to most food and beverage that we consume daily. Meanwhile, the food and health authorities in North America don't consider caramel as sugar. But how is caramel made? You boil the regular refined sugar till it becomes golden brown liquid, or even till it is burnt. The evaporated condensed sugar becomes the brown colored caramel, which has at least 6 times more sugar content than the regular refined white sugar. It is amazing that food manufacturers are allowed to use caramel by the food safe authorities, then claim on their label that their food has 0 sugar or 0 calorie, while at the same time also add aspartame, the artificial sweetener that causes cancer. For your information, the brown color and taste of cola mainly comes from caramel. Recently, monk fruit and stevia have become popular as sugar substitutes, but for your information, monk fruit is also known as luo han guo. It is native to China. In Asia, luo han guo is used in making cough syrup, while monk fruit in the West, it is used as alternative sweetener in food or drink. However, most consumers and all food manufacturers use the cheap, mass-produced refined white monk fruit powder and stevia powder as sweeteners. Manufacturers prefer to call their products extract rather than powder, as powder connotates the unhealthy white sugar powder. But extract means the monk fruit and stevia are processed and their sweeteners are chemically extracted and turned into powder. Nevertheless, extract or powder, monk fruit and stevia sweeteners are so processed with additives, chemicals and preservatives, and their fibers and nutrients are mostly stripped. Hence, they are also the bad refined carbohydrate. Do you know who is the biggest stevia powder manufacturer in the world? The answer is trivia, manufactured by the Coca-Cola company for Cargill. Here is the notorious corn syrup that are used in more than half of the food and beverage we consume daily. Food manufacturers know consumers try to avoid labels that contain high fructose corn syrup as one of the added ingredients, so they omit the high fructose prefix, that they either call it just corn syrup or just the generic name sugar, or disguise it under fancy or misleading names like glucose fructose, dextrose, maltose, cornstarch, maltodextrin, etc. Some consumers replace corn syrup with agave syrup or maple syrup. However, to make agave or maple syrup, we process the sap by boiling it, evaporate it, the condensed liquid becomes the syrup. Through such process, most of their fibers and nutrients are stripped, hence they too are not good sugars, rather they are the bad refined carbohydrate. Here comes the worst of the worst, aspartame, the artificial sweetener. Aspartame is known to have caused cancers and other diseases. Well-known artificial sweeteners are sucralose, Splenda, Equal, NutraSweet, Sweet and Low, etc. Aspartame is a low-calorie artificial sweetener used as sugar substitute in various food and beverage products. It's about 200 times sweeter than sucrose or table sugar. Aspartame is a dipeptide composed of the amino acids aspartic acid and phenylalanine. It is approved for use in many countries and is found in a wide array of products like diet drinks, chewing gum, medications, supplements, etc. In short, aspartame is a synthetic chemical compound that is harmful to our body, but approved to be used in anything that has sugar-free and 0 calories claimed in food labels. So stay away from aspartame. Hope you are now more aware who are the 3 main examples of bad sugars, aka the bad refined carbohydrate that cause diseases, diabetes, obesity, etc. So number 1, the common white and brown sugars, sometimes disguised as evaporated cane juice, raw sugar, or coconut sugar, etc. Number 2, corn syrup that comes in so many different fancy names, i.e. dextrose, fructose, glucose, maltose, cornstarch, etc. And syrup substitutes, i.e. agave syrup and maple syrup. Number 3, sugar substitutes, i.e. monk fruit extract, stevia extract, and aspartame, the artificial sweeteners. Last but not least, the healthiest sugars are the natural fructose found in fresh or frozen fruits, raw or pure honey, dates, date paste, etc., due to their natural fiber and rich nutrient content. They are the good carbohydrates. But wait, you may have been told to avoid high glycemic index foods as they would spike up your blood glucose or they cause diabetes. And have such a misconception that very sweet fruit or honey must have high glycemic indexes, but most fruits and honey in fact have low glycemic index. Glycemic index is a scale out of 100 that ranks a carbohydrate containing food or drink by how much it raises blood glucose after it is consumed. You may have also been told to avoid honey, as honey is sugar, sugar is sugar, all sugars are bad, and that there is no such thing as good sugar. However, if the honey is adulterated, meaning it has been mixed with corn syrup, then such honey is not a good sugar. So how can you tell if the liquid honey has been mixed with corn syrup? The quickest and most convenient way to test in a store is to flip the honey container upside down. If the bubbles go up fast, then it's likely the honey has been added with a lot of corn syrup. See the video for our experiment where you can see the honey on the left, its bubble goes up faster than the one on the right. Oh, that one go faster. This one just reached to the top. That means this one is better. Well, if we are not misguided about high glycemic index and good honey, then we can avoid real bad sugars, but consume real good sugars like pure or raw honey and fresh fruits, regardless how high their glycemic index are, as our body can metabolize them naturally and perfectly. Even though our blood glucose would spike up temporarily, then stabilize, and such unprocessed and natural food help regulate our blood glucose. To the contrary, blood sugar would spike up on individuals that consume or have accumulated fat in their bodies due to eating excessive bad sugars or refined carbohydrate, regardless the food they eat is low or high in their glycemic indexes. Conclusion: bad sugars are in almost everything we put in our mouth on a daily basis. It is hard to avoid completely. However, you are now more informed what are bad sugars and bad carbohydrates, because they are so processed and refined, where fibers and nutrients are stripped so our body cannot metabolize properly but turn them into fat and glucose in our blood. That lead to cancer, diabetes, obesity, etc. So reduce their intake and slowly increasing your intake of good sugars. That not only we should not avoid good natural sugars but also should consume daily, regardless of their high glycemic index. And good sugars or good carbohydrates don't cause diseases, diabetes or obesity. They are the nutrients for our body and brain that keep us healthy and give us mental clarity. It is not how much sugar we consume, but it is how much bad sugar we put into our mouth that matters. So what are your thoughts? We would like to hear what you think. Please leave us a comment. Please follow and subscribe to our channel for more life-saving and life-changing inspirations. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Bye. If you wish to read the book Watch the Mouth, the link is in the description.